English translation, 365th contact. Friday, 20th August 2004. E0 Porsche 12 hours.
Be welcome and greeted, Ptaah, my friend. It really is a joy to see you.
You are also greeted, and the pleasure is also mine. What kind of documents are these that you have on the table before you?
Well, I might as well start with what I assume you have approved. In the New Contact Conversation Volume Number 1, published in book form, you can read in the 31st Contact Report on pages 311 and 312 how Ascot spoke about the so-called Tunguska catastrophe. In this regard, I have copied the following from Volume No. 1.
Contact reports with Ascot from 1953 to 1964. Introduction and justification, and accurate reporting of all events and explanations, etc. Copy of original. Written in respective cooperation with Ascot. Pleiadian Pleiarenian Contact Reports, Conversations, Volume 1, page 295. Ascot's Explanations. 31st Contact Report, Thursday, the 17th of July, 1975, 10:14 hours. Pages 311 and 312, sentences 86 through 95.
Every advance and every further visit to Earth was forbidden. And there was even a provision that if a ship should unexpectedly stray to the Earth and find no possibility of getting away, the entire crew together with the ship would have to be totally eliminated. This actually happened about 1,000 years after this regulation was issued, when a large spaceship still in earthly space was no longer able to free itself from the Earth, where it had been hidden for several months with severe technical damage in the country you call Russia. The ship was only able to work its way up a few hundred meters and then sank again. According to the regulation that no spaceships, etc., were allowed to approach the Earth anymore, any help was impossible. On the other hand, other races from space stationed on Earth were forbidden to bring help to the damaged ship because an earthly epidemic had broken out among the crew, which was very dangerous for these life forms. Knowing that no help was waiting for them, they constructed a huge bomb out of the foundation stones of life, nuclear, which you call the atom, forced the ship as far up in the sky as possible, and then simply let it crash. Like a giant comet, it crashed down to the Earth, and before it hit the Earth, the atomic bomb was detonated at a height of a few hundred meters. A huge explosion tore the ship and crew apart, turning everything into dust and destroying the landscape. All that was left of it was a huge crater, which your scientists erroneously call a meteor crater. More than 4,300 life forms of extraterrestrial origin were destroyed in this gigantic destruction, which can only be attributed to the earthly cult of Christ, because the real reason for this destruction was the madness of this earthly religion.
Now some things have come to light about this. Our passive member Uwe Dvorak from Germany sent me a newspaper article by email, which is very interesting in the aforementioned matter. Bernadette then found a similar article on the internet and in the Blick newspaper of Saturday, the 14th of August 2004. It concerns these words of Uwe Dvorak and these articles here, which I would like to read to you in their entirety, in order to then hear your comment on them.
Hello, it is already in the contact reports. Yet more evidence. Salome Uwe Dvorak, Germany, Tunguska, disaster. Researchers report finding UFO remains. Russian researchers believe to have discovered parts of a UFO at the site where an exploding meteorite cleaved the Siberian forest in 1908. The extraterrestrials, so the theory goes, had virtually shot down the meteorite before the impact and thus prevented the worst for humankind. New evidence. Fragile asteroid devastated Tunguska.
These words of Uwe were followed by a longer report of a journal, which was published in a similar wise in various newspapers and other journals. Also, similar news was published by several other newspapers, but the content was the same.
These are the articles here?
Yes, that is right. But before I read them to you, I would like you to comment on them afterwards.
What do you mean?
My wish is that you explain what kind of spaceship the aircraft was, because it was something unusual.
I guess you could say that.
Then you are willing to explain it?
Yes, because it is not a secret matter.
Exactly. Some details would be good to mention.
I assume that you have toyed with this thought.
Nothing is hidden from you.
We both know each other very well, even if you surprise me again and again with things that are unknown to me about you. You know very well how to keep your secrets. That is what we have seen in you for years.
It is not that bad. But now I want to read you these two articles. The first one here is from the Blick newspaper of August 14th, as I said before. The second one here is from the internet from T-Online. So listen, what do you say to this? It is interesting that finally people are coming and talking about different things than they have been. Talking about so far by some scientists who claimed that the Tunguska catastrophe was caused by gas escaping from the Earth and exploding, etc.
The articles are very interesting, but they do not correspond to the reality of what happened at that time. It is true, as you know, that the event was caused by a spacecraft of alien intelligences, exactly according to Askett's description as you read it to me, with the 86th to 95th sentence of Askett's explanations. The crew of the large space-flying apparatuses, which was destroyed over the Tunguska region in 1908 on 30th of June, came from the Set Cottus galaxy, a large spiral galaxy about 17 million light-years away, also known to Earth's astronomers under the designation M101. The home of the astronauts was a planet of little more than Earth size and is called Catullus. It is a satellite of the solar system Lyra, which includes 2 suns and 18 planets, but only 3 of them carry human life. The galaxy can be observed from the Earth from above, so to speak, but the Lyra solar system remains invisible from the Earth because it is beyond observation. The crew members of the space-flying apparatuses belong to the Helis people, which is why we call them Gilasers. The Gilaser people were already very advanced in space technology at that time, and were also able to build huge spacecraft using small planetoids. In these they created large cavities, in which they placed equipment for propulsion, for powerful weapons, for external protective shields and electron collectors, as well as energy storage, living quarters, workspaces, food production facilities, and life support systems, etc. In other words, everything that was necessary. From the outside, it was not recognizable that it was a spacecraft, because on the outside the object remained as what it basically was, namely a small planetoid. Its enormous weight could be calculated with about 179,854 tons, so what you read in the T-Online article is not close to the truth. It is very likely that the enormous explosion threw fragments of the outer thick planetoid hull and metal parts of the interior of the planetoid spaceship to the Earth. And what else is to be said about the huge crater? It covered about 3,500 square kilometers. The massive explosion originated at an altitude of 1,190 meters. It is not a deep crater or hole crater, as it is created by a direct impact of a large projectile on the Earth, because the explosion at high altitude created a so-called horizontal crater. In a horizontal crater, the force of the explosion from above or the pressure wave depresses all of the Earth, as well as plants, animals, and at least the weak trees. The force of the pressure wave only forms a small bulge at the outermost edge of the crater. which can be thrown up from a few centimeters to 20 or 30 meters or more, depending on the energy of the pressure wave. However, such horizontal craters are only formed by large pressure waves from above and are usually not or only poorly visible. Because the distance from the center of the crater to its rim is usually so far that the actual crater rim is difficult to find.
There are also many meteors and asteroids that enter the Earth's atmosphere and explode high up in it, and therefore do not fall down to the Earth.
That is correct. Such projectiles from outer space are fragile objects up to several meters in size, mostly asteroids, which, due to friction in the outer atmosphere, literally explode at an altitude of about 40 to 60 kilometers, and depending on their size, trigger powerful detonations that can often be heard like bomb impacts. This also applies to small similar objects, whereby the explosion then sounds like the bursting of a balloon or the popping of a champagne stopper, which can be heard especially at night when there is great silence. It sounds like a small electrical charge ripping the air with a faint bang at a height of several kilometers. We call these events atmospheric shooting, while we call the enormous detonations at high altitudes meteoric or asteroidal shooting.
Thank you, Billy. Your explanation says everything I wanted to know. Well, at the moment the Olympic Games are taking place in Athens, which you also talked about during your last visit, as well as in relation to the fact that many so-called athletes are actually no longer athletes, but only doping silos, because they use all kinds of doping substances to get themselves pumped up to achieve top performances. It has now become clear that a Greek sprinter named Kostas Kanteris and a Greek sprinter named Ekaterini Thanu should have appeared for doping control. But they did not do so because they were in hospital care following a motorcycle accident. The whole thing is not clear, however, because it is said that the accident was faked. Do you know anything about this, since you are interested in the Olympics and all the trimmings?
In fact, I have been following everything related to the Olympic competitions for about 60 years, so I am very well informed about what is going on in general. For many so-called athletes, competitions are all about profit, victory, and prestige, for which they are entitled to all illicit means, including doping. The two people you mentioned are also among them. In fact, at the time of the request for doping control, they were under the influence of stimulants, which is why they jointly faked an alleged motorcycle accident and went into hospital care to escape control. But this was not the first two things they did. Because they have been doing similar things for years, because their sporting successes in recent years were based on the fact that they were able to boost their performance through doping, but they always managed to escape doping controls. Such machinations belong among various athletes to their profession, which is usually also known to their coaches. And it is precisely these ones who usually find out through unfair channels when doping tests are scheduled, so that they can warn their protégés in good time, so that they can abstain from doping at the appropriate time, so that the tests are negative. But if the timing of testing is found out too late, ways and means are found to avoid it until the doping drugs are no longer detectable in the body. The example of the two you mentioned is classic, unfortunately.
Well, unfortunately, everything keeps going downhill, including sports. But something else. Of course I looked it up. It was at the 230th contact on Wednesday, the 19th of October, 1989, Pleiadian contact reports, volume No. 6, page 64, sentences part 72 to 482. During the conversation with Ketzel, the following occurred when we discussed some things concerning tiger mosquitoes. That is to say, tiger mosquitoes. Because Ferdinand Pfeifenberger and I had such an insect in our car in the canton of Ticino, namely in Mendrisio. Here, if I may briefly read to you from the interview report. Are you familiar with terrestrial insects, by which I mean mosquitoes?
My knowledge of that is limited. I may have learned a lot about such earthly life forms, but I cannot call myself knowledgeable enough to be able to define such creatures. My actual knowledge refers to the variety of species and genera that we know of such life forms on Earth, namely, there are about 1 million. My knowledge in this respect also includes the distribution ranges of the life forms.
Fine. So do you know how the creatures spread and where they go?
Yes, but I explained to you before that insects as well as all kinds of mammals, birds, snakes, crocodiles, and turtles, etc., spread from their countries of origin to other countries by being carried away by food transports, by tourists and all kinds of goods. Furthermore, there is also a worldwide trade in such life forms, whereby they are kept in houses and are released back into the wild when the opportunity arises, where they acclimatize and reproduce.
That is exactly what I was getting at. When I was in the south of France with Ferdinand Pfeifenberger a few years ago, as well as in Italy, after which we spent 2 days in Ticino. We had an insect in Mendrisio in our car that looked devilishly like a tiger mosquito, the kind I know from Asia. Of course I killed the thing, because I did not want to be stung, since tiger mosquitoes can transmit all kinds of diseases, such as dengue fever, etc. I said this to Ferdinand, but he found my assumption ridiculous, so I did not talk about it anymore and let everything be. Since it comes to my mind again now, I would like to ask you whether it is actually possible that it could have been a tiger mosquito. I simply cannot get rid of the suspicion. In Latin, the insect is called, if I remember correctly, Aedes albopicus or something. Whether the name is correct, however, I do not know anymore, because it is long ago when I read the Latin name of the insect in a reference book.
Aedes albopictus. That is the Latin name of the insect. Actually, there is a possibility that you had such an insect in your car and killed it. Because in 1978 we have researched. These insects were brought to Europe from Asia with goods. And since then they have been acclimatizing in Turkey and Greece, as well as in Yugoslavia, Albania, Italy, Belgium, Germany, France, and southern Switzerland. In many places this fact has not yet been recognized, but it may only be a matter of time before the insect is discovered everywhere, which will be at the latest when acclimatization is complete and the insects reproduce in larger breeding colonies.
So this is what Ketzel and I were talking about. Now a short article has been published in a newspaper, which confirms exactly what I noticed back then in Ticino. What do you think?
Let me see the article.
Unfortunately, I do not have it here, because it is somewhere with Bernadette. She wanted to bring it back so I could show it to you, but obviously she forgot. But the fact is that the article practically confirms exactly that tiger mosquitoes are now appearing in Ticino, if I am not mistaken.
That was already true when you noticed such an insect in your car and killed it. There is probably not much more to say about it.
Actually, yes. Then that would answer all the questions I had today.
Then I would like to play another game of chess, if you like. My yearning for it is there.
Of course.
I am also thirsty, if you can offer me something.
I have some mineral water outside the office entrance or ginger ale, which you already drank. I can also offer you dark chocolate.
I would like to have ginger ale and some chocolate.
Your wish is my command. Just a moment.